whether it's and is it qualitatively or just quantitatively? I would say it's qualitatively as well as quantitative. God thinks differently than the way that we do. Although I think our reason and our rationality is derivative. That's what the image of God is. That's part of the image of God in us. That's part of His gift to us. And with the influence of sin removed from the human person as well, our powers of reason would be far greater. So there's, which is that's something for another discussion. But I'm just trying to summarise what I said. So you've got Davidson's insight there, but we have to understand that's an epistemological limitation, observation, that we wouldn't even be able to recognise a different conceptual scheme from our own. That does seem to mitigate to a degree, Stroud's criticism of transcendental arguments, that they can never demonstrate ontological necessity, whereas it seems to be the implication of Davidson's view is that problem, the distance between concept and reality, or mind and world, that's how McDowell put it, suddenly that distance seems to evaporate. We've got a much stronger, it's not, say, it can't ascend to the level of logical certainty, but it would be, you might say, well, it ascends to the level, not perhaps of infallible, but up to the point of being incorrigible. It's something, it's much stronger than, and this is reflected in Plantinga's conclusion that arguments about the existence of God and the necessity of God are as good as and are as powerful and are as warranted as philosophical arguments can get to. So as much as a philosophical argument can achieve with regards to any issue, the existence of God and the necessity of the existence of God, your terminus is as good a point as any argument can philosophical argument you can generate can be. So so it's not claiming that it's objectively provable, but it is a very strong point. It's a very strong. You're as good as a philosophical argument can get. I'm just repeating myself there. And what we're trying to say with where Van Til would be strong, would want to be stronger, is saying that the argument can be even stronger than that. You don't have to have the terminus of you can establish that it's actually also true. That was perhaps the sentence I missed off, is that Plantinga sort of says that philosophical arguments are as good arguments as you can get. The real question, and so it's not you have warrant to say that your Christian belief is rational, and that's his great contribution, was this concept of warrant, and of saying that which is far stronger than justification. So it's not that that you're justified, you're warranted. You're warranted is considered far stronger. You're warranted to believe, and you can generate arguments on the basis of warrant that your belief in God is rational. Whereas Van Til's work wants to take you a little bit further, or a lot, in some ways a lot further, and actually to say that it's logically necessary for existence of God is what makes, which gives, which helps you establish a basic standard of objectivity that allows you to interpret the world and for the world to be intelligible at all. And so, I then sort of launched off from that sort of thought of that view of that the world is only made intelligible by the Christian worldview and the concept of the Trinity in particular, because the Trinity resolves the distinction between universal and particular, which has been one of those issues in philosophy that's reappeared and continually in different forms. How do you resolve the universal and the particular? Does the universal really exist, or is it just a convenient linguistic label? If it does exist, where does it exist? What's its status? What's its ontological status? What's its epistemological status? What are the ethical implications? And I was trying to show that all these things all wrapped up in each other. And if unless you resolve those basic fundamental issues of ontology and epistemology, then outflows the tyranny. If you dismiss, say, God from your intellectual structures, then you end up with tyranny and a view of man which is strips him of his freedom, strips him of his ability to speak freely, and you end up in political tyranny. So I think I managed to bring it all back around again as to why it was so easy to launch off into that. So I hope this is I'm going to have to call it a day now, but I hope it's been interesting, because I think when I listen to this, obviously there's a couple of bits I've got to edit out and gaps, and when people ring on the doorbell I have to check. So there might be a couple of little jumps where I've had to edit stuff out, but I think when I listen to it again, and there'll be plenty that I can put in the description, and the timings in there, because I think we really covered a lot of. I really firmed up what I consider to be the transcendental argument, but without getting inanely technical. That's always a challenge, If I was doing a lecture, then yeah, you'd have the PowerPoint, the point. You'd want to be far more rigorous in what you're saying, but I think that makes a really boring talk if you're just trying to read off stuff. Even when I'm reading just sentences from the screen, I don't feel that's particularly useful unless, reading Strawson, nice little summary of Strawson, because they're trying to get all the words out to his argument. I think it is useful to give some concrete, specific, and that's why I read in that particular way. But I didn't want to get overly detailed and end up in the arguments, which I don't think is useful in a video. I think that is something more that's saying, yes, I've written more about it. You can study more about that there. I've got the references. You can really dig it if that's really your thing, because there's lots of to and fro's with and the criticism of the transcendental arguments and how you could answer those. And I do that in my chapter when I discuss it. I say, well, these are the basic descriptions, but most of them can be answered very simply, because people have just misunderstood that a transcendental argument is not dealing with one individual question about a nature, answering a question of nature. It's dealing with a principle of nature. It's Kant's conception. What objects? What is it that we need to assume about objects to make objects intelligible? So that's the essence of what a transcendental argument is. And so I think I have firmed that up more. I feel more. I feel better, sort of, with having listened to what my last talk, which was long, and split up. And I think it did manage to get into the transcendental argument and try and discuss transcendentalism a bit more. But I felt that there needed to be just a little bit more meat on that to give people a springboard as to say, well, why, what, give me a few more examples, because I'm enthusiastic about sort of like this whole project of sort of getting stuff in video form for people to watch, because videos where things are really happening in the world at the moment. Videos, people, I'm doing a book, and this is meant to be advertising the book, but print media, people think, what print? What's a book? But there's still plenty of publishing a book, and I think for the both forms of media to work together is what I'm interested in. Okay, so God bless. See you again soon.